first, then before we can float the dollar, so that we can equate the black market and the official forex. So those are some of the factors that we can do. And also, I also look at the opportunities that comes in turbulence time. The opportunities of going inward to think, look at what can we do better? What value can we add in our own system? One, we can look at introducing our local content material inside the construction industry. Bringing local content materials in the industry. The construction industry is key to global infrastructure development and a major contributor to many countries' socio-economic growth. The industry has experienced a series of shocks in recent time, resulting in risk affecting construction. Some of the items we'll be looking at is the floating of the naira. How did it affect the construction industry? And the senior brother that I just presented last, Mr. Charles, brought some highlights on this perspective on how the floating of the naira affected the construction industry. A few months ago, after the floating of the naira, some of the projects that we are handling, I have a project that I'm currently handling. The PC sum was in the tune of 500 million in naira. But currently, what that job is being bidded for, that item of work, is close to 1 billion naira. It's close to 1 billion naira, 1 point something billion, in that range, in the range of billion. So we're having up to 50, 60%, 100% to 110% inflation on this cost. How can we manage this? How can we resolve these issues? How can we mitigate? A lot of people, before now, a lot of people have anticipated. A lot of people are anticipated. This is what is going to happen in the industry. One of the challenges, one of the advantages that we had in the project, one of the advantages we had is that most of the items were fixed. We anticipated that there's going to be a government change. There's going to be a change in government. We are going to have policies that we cannot have control over. When we have policies that we cannot have control over, what we needed to do is to have ways that we can mitigate these policies in the future. These are things that what's down. In this country today, only few construction sites were still working during the COVID-19. You have the likes of the Dangote refinery. That was major activities were still going on. And they were in piecemeal. All other construction, these are turbulent times. Currently, with this floating of the naira, we are going to be we can't do this. So what can we do? Here we have the inflation rate from 2022 up to July, from July 2022 to July 2023. You can see the rate of inflation. You can see the graph. You see the movement of our materials. You can see the movement in prices. You also, from here, you see also the CPI index. You see the CPI, you see it's the same trend. It's the same trend of movement. Our CPI as at 2020, August 2022 was around 471. Currently, it's at 575 currently. So it's a major problem. But what can we do better? There are major benefits of risk mitigation, of risk management. Some of the benefits we are going to derive from proper risk management is contribution to project success. We are going to have flow in the project. We start and we finish. Because in the crisis, when there is a financial crisis, when there is turbulence, there's bound to be project abandonment. You see a lot of projects we start because a financier that plan to finance a project for 3 billion, you cannot come and tell him that that project he was going to finance, he has planned to finance with 3 billion, is now going to cost 7 billion. How do you explain? You go explain tire now, because there's no evidence. You go explain, you go tire. No evidence. So we are going to, proper risk management is going to reduce overhead and time waste. Because there's time involved in crisis management. But when these are properly mitigated against from the onset, you can save time. And when we save time, we save enough resources by saving time. We're going to reduce better business outcome. We're going to have better business outcome and informed decisions. Because we already know what is going to happen in the next few months, we've anticipated it, we can plan for it. Like I said, one of the projects where I'm handling right now, when we entered the contract was last year, 2022, before this government. What we did was to fix the contract. We told the contractor, we are not going to be available for fluctuation. So, we are going to pay you for all your material costs. We are going to pay you for all your material costs. What is the cost? We paid 16% advance payment with a bond. We release, if the money is available, release it. That is one of the ways we can mitigate against risk. That's brought us to the next risk mitigating strategies. The strategies we can use to mitigate against risk. When you already know that risk is going to occur, because you cannot totally avoid it. You cannot run away from it. You can either reduce. We have avoidance. When they are saying avoidance, it's not saying that you can run away from it entirely. It's saying we can, when a risk is not accepted and other lower risk options are accessible from many alternatives, that means look for lower options, other options of the risk that this one is too much. I will accept this in this aspect. So because you cannot run away from it entirely. Then we have also retention and acceptance. When you actually said the risk will occur, whenever it occurs, I will take it. I will take whatever the outcome is, I will bear the responsibility. That means you are accepting the risk and you are retaining it. Then we have other options of strategies, controlling and reduction. When the process is constantly monitored and revised conditions of project is employed, you monitor the process, you control it, and you act fast as things unfold. Then we have the other transfer and deflect. Yes, this is one of the strategies that I am currently employing in one of my projects. I transfer the risk to the contractor. I tell you, contractor, look at it. I'm not ready. We are not going to have any meeting concerning this project as regards fluctuation of material. What is your material cost? Said it, I will pay you the money. Currently, a contract we awarded a few weeks ago, we paid 85% advance payment. We released 85% advance payment to the contractor, just so that it will not come back. But currently now, this crisis is making construction projects more expensive. Why? Because the contractor knows that you are going to transfer the risk to him. He is not going to make adequate shock absorbers in their pricing. So, because he doesn't know what the dollar will be tomorrow, he only knows about this hour. So, because he doesn't know about what the dollar will be tomorrow, because most of the materials are imported at dollar base, he will have to pad up the contract sum to make sure that anything that happens, he can be able to bear the risk. So, who is still bearing the risk? The client. So, why the negotiation strategy is now, contractor, you don't have to pad this up. You don't have to give me much because you don't know what the dollar will be tomorrow. I am sure I'm going to pay you so date. 100%. If you can produce a bond for me in 1 week, you get your payment. And you are going to get 80% payment. So, can we have a discount of so amount? Then yes, if it's yes, we go into it. These are strategies we have employed. But now, this strategy, one person will be at risk. The contractor. If a contractor we gave job last year, when a bag of cement was 3,850, and he accepted that there is no fluctuation, takes the money, and today the bag of cement 5,200, 300. How is he going to meet up? The contractor himself should learn also to transfer his risk. You learn also to transfer your risk. Don't bear it. You don't have to absorb it. Transfer it. Get your vendors. Pay for this material in tonnage. If you are going to get cement, you already from the onset of the construction, you know how many tonnage of cement you need. Yes. You should know how many tonnage of cement you need for the job. You should know how many tonnage of reinforcement you need to complete this job. You know how many square meters of ties you will need for this job. Pay for them. Pay for them. Let the vendor keep them. The vendor, you sign a contract with the vendor. He cannot come and tell you that the price has increased. No, it's not done. So if you are a contractor, like you get such contract, you just go and buy a Lexus Prado, then you will wait that some other money will come, you will execute the contract. When something like this happens, you are going to run a scatter. So we should also learn how to transfer risk. So we have risk management process. We have risk management process. We have the risk identification, risk evaluation, and risk response. One, you have to identify from onset. The first strategy, the first process is to identify the intended risk you are going to encounter in this project. When you are starting a project to face like I told you before, Tinubu government of a company, a construction company, who already anticipated that, because already some of our leaders, from their untrust in some body language, already know the direction they are going to take. A name. You will say, I am Pope John Paul II. From that name, he is going to choose. From the subsidy can no longer exist presidency, whether it was a Tinubu, or it was Atiku, or it was a Peter Obi. We knew one thing was sure. One thing that was sure is that subsidy will not longer exist. Some people, some firms, on working at home. So they already set because the overhead has to be reduced. You have to reduce your overhead. So they were already planning. If this thing happens, we cannot afford to increase wealth. We're already working at them in the economy. Because one of the problems we are having currently is that why proving to be corrected, I have things. One of the reasons why I'm going to eat when I'm not hungry is because I'm not sure of if I'm going to get the food when I need it. Because I'm not sure of if I'm going to get the food when I need it. Some of those challenges are the inadequate knowledge of from the beginning. Most time, one of the issues, like when I was praying, I must make sure that to a level percentage. Some of the challenges we are having now, because some of the work we are doing, we didn't anticipate what is going to happen in the initial onset, because the scope was not known. So now we like the ELV, the other interiors. So you have to, the scope needs to be determined. So when the scope is not known, so now frame structures, we will be able to save 300 million on that work. But because the scope was not certain, a lot of factors were involved. We could not tell what we need to pay for. So the scope needs to be certain. We need to know, from the onset, you need to know what you are into, what you are going into. That's one of the first point first. Then the different factors. We have inadequate experience with project personnel. Yeah, with this kind of workshop, some of us gain some knowledge. We gain adequate knowledge to mitigate against risk when it comes. We have higher construction costs. Like it has been said, that Nigeria has the highest construction cost in the world. It is on record. Nigeria has the highest construction cost in the world. And what is the cost? What is the cost with the major cost of this? And it is because of the uncertainties of the environment. Most of the contractors, we have to amortize, make much available money to cover for these uncertainties, because they don't know what the next step would be. And the bureaucracy in the process. I know of some construction companies that doesn't take projects from government because of the bureaucracy to get them paid for the job. Then the effect of profit margin of developers, then the complex tools and techniques for analysis. Those are the factors that affect risk management implementation in construction projects. So, what are tools and techniques used in managing construction project risk? We have some tools. We have two tools. We have checklist analysis. This is one of the common techniques used in managing construction project risk. The techniques ensure the creation of risk identification checklist. First, you pen down what are the risks that we are anticipating. You pen down, you made a checklist. Then the second, you have to do a brainstorming. Brainstorming on which approach that needs to be followed. Which approach needs to be followed? Am I going to transfer this risk? Am I going to accept the risk? Am I going to reduce the risk? So you have to brainstorm. Through brainstorming, we can have a way of having proper management, risk management. You see things that are not clear, things you never thought of, you now come to reality. Then you now look for alternative. Like same on the project I'm talking about, we are looking into ways of having alternative construction materials. Like instead of importing glasses for this work, why not have locally made glasses? Why not have locally made glasses that are done in Nigeria? Yeah, we have companies that produce a lot of construction material. Yeah, but the problem is that we don't patronize them because they are local materials. So why not start looking for ways to reduce this cost by patronizing the local content? What is the way forward? What is the way forward? Risk management Like my senior brother said, we need to have policies. We need to have policies that will determine, that will help us in the industry. We need to create policy. We need to be in the front line. Because we are being affected the most. We need to ensure that the government create policies to mitigate against. I don't know if any of us we are fully aware that the construction, at the end of the entire construction work, we pay VAT on the entire construction work after paying VAT for the material we purchase. That I see as double VATing. So we can as well look into things like this and see ways we can mitigate against this. On the onset, we can actually of material and labor separately. With that, you can run away from paying double VATing, but that can be a discussion for another day. Construction firms should evaluate project risk currently and establish the most economical initiative to prevent or mitigate against them. What can we do better? How can we produce a better outcome project? How can we have better projects? How can we reduce the risk? We need to check, we need to look at the traditional risk approach. It's no longer working. In construction, you hear about car, the construction oil risk. But some of those risks are not involved. They don't take adequate control of fluctuations. Then what can we do? Can we be looking at having risk management aspects to cover for this fluctuation? Can we go into an agreement? Can we take a bond? Can we take insurance to cover for uncertainties like fluctuation? We can be looking at it. It's a way forward. When I want to start a project, I can say, oh, so time we are in the project is supposed to cost 6 billion naira. I can approach an insurance firm if they are able. I want to fix this contract. I want to fix this project against fluctuation. And what can correct an academic's work? We have questionnaires on this regards that will be shared to most of us. Please help us and fill the questionnaires appropriately. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Please, a round of applause for QS Igbebo Omopo for that presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll take the second paper, then take all the questions immediately. Apologies, just so that we can manage the risk of finishing late. I know risk can also be positive. We can exploit it as well. I know there's still food there, so we can exploit that risk too, even though some of us are heavy. And I QS Osama Gbeon. All right, can we stand up quickly? Stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Kick it, kick it, kick it, kick it. Nice, nice. I need you all to be active, okay? And again. What's our tagline? The greeting. NIQS. NIQS, I talk with. A round of applause for yourselves. You are still awake. All right. Please, a fellow of the Nigerian of Quanitity Surveyors and a seasoned, she was a project LC. She's worked as an estimator before, or she was at some point in time the general manager audit at Construction Kaiser Limited, deploying and implemented quality managing system for Construction Kaiser. Ladies and gentlemen, the COSO framework for internal controls into organization, business, and processes. She is a member of the Building Collapse Prevention Guild, a non-profit making organization reinforcing standard practices in the construction industry, and of course has served in various capacities has served various capacities in the advocacy against local, state, national bodies of PCPG. Ladies and gentlemen, our resource person is presently the commercial team lead manager of construction case project across Nigeria. She is macro. Ladies and gentlemen, please, with a round of applause, join me as I welcome our third resource person for today, who is going to be taking us on commercial, contractual, and supply management issues. A round of applause for QS Fit Ezeogo, FNIQS. I was going to say something else in relation to the Esama, but we won't say it. All right? A dancing queen. A round of applause for her.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Standing on the existing protocol, I want to say thank you very much to the organizing committee and a good evening to everybody here present. A special good evening to the members of the National Executive Council, especially to the President, QS Shonobi, and I join to say QS Shonobi Tokbe is and thank you for not allowing the SMA take me away. Because my husband would have come to ask you, is that why you asked her to come to Benin? Thank you. I think we all needed that to wind away the stress. Thank you. Okay. My name is QS Faith Ezugo, not Ezogo. It's Ezugo, a king with a honor. That is my name. Thank you. Okay, this evening I'm going to be talking about managing construction projects in turbulent times, but I'm going to be looking at it from the main contractor's perspective. I'm going to be dealing more on commercial, contractual, and supply management issues. The first question I want to ask is, how did we get here? How did we get here? And I'm sure that most of us were born or have been in the industry when all this took place. It's not too long. COVID-19 met us suddenly. We were not prepared for it. I'm sure nobody was prepared for it. Our government underestimated it. After that, we woke up to the Ukraine-Russian war. That skyrocketed the prices of energy products and brought about inflation in many countries of the world. Then we have the high inflation rates. Rising cost of energy, we had all those. Then recently we had the removal of the subsidy. The president welcomed us with no more subsidy is gone. That is the statement. Subsidy is gone. So we are in a turbulent time. What makes the time turbulent? What makes the time turbulent? There are three particular characteristics of a very turbulent period, and those characteristics are uncertainty, volatility, and unpredictability. When you say something is unpredictable, what do you mean? You can't tell the next moment. You can't tell what will happen next. It's uncertain, you can't predict it. Even when you do your planning, it seems as if you are guessing what could the outcome be. There is volatility because the currency is not stable, the exchange rate is not stable, the prices are not stable, they are just here and there. And this can make take one off balance. It's a risky business, even before the turbulent times. As construction managers, we know that there are a lot of uncertainty when you talk of. Before the turbulent times, we had uncertainties to deal with as construction managers. At least for everyone here that have been managing projects, you won't tell me that it is, since it's just because we are now in turbulent times, that's why we are not meeting up with our margins, we are meeting deadlines, we are not having time overrun. It's not because the turbulent time is here. It's just that now it is increased. So we have double problems to deal with now. We have the main contractor's ordeal. So as the main contractor, it seems everything is just happening at the same time. In my 19 years of experience, I have never seen a time as bad as this. And I have never been as much busy as I am as this time. This is a time where, as a main contractor, you go to bed, and maybe in the past you used to have bad dreams of maybe demons pursuing you. But this time, you'll be dreaming, you'll be seeing the prices of material going up and down. When you are dreaming, you are trying to negotiate. When you are dreaming, you are thinking about the work. The main contractor, I can say, is more at a disadvantage at this time. You have the client's needs that you need to meet. You have a market that you do not have control over. You are trying to put this in place. It's just as though you are trying to patch up a leaking plumbing pipe and it is breaking in another point. You try to seal up this point, it is breaking on the other point. Which would you do and which one would you not do? So the main contractor is really affected by these turbulent times, and some of the things I'm going to be discussing today is some of the things we have been through in recent times. And I want to say that unfortunately many contractors have closed business. Because how do you manage a business that you got a contract, maybe a project, and you have calculated your margin that, okay, good or bad, let me take a 15%, for example. You get your advance payment. Before the project starts up, the market prices is like twice the amount with which you went into tender project. How would you make profit? How would you keep your head office overhead running? How do you pay staff? How do you pay subcontractors and suppliers? How do you ensure that you come up with something, come out of a project with at least something that you can say, this is the margin on this project? It's really a very tough time for us, and a very tough. Look critically into what we can do in turbulent times like this, and ensure that we do not sink the boat, and ensure that the business does not sink, and ensure that we keep retaining our good hands. To worsen this situation, there is also scarce professionals. The jackpot syndrome is here. I don't know if it's affecting your business. In my department alone, I know how many people has jackpot. And they are good hands. Any young, brilliant person you are talking to now is thinking of how to go to Canada, how to go to the UK, how to relocate to the US. Nobody is thinking of that project you are working so hard to get in Edo State, to be posted there to go and manage it. So we have a lot of issues to deal with. At times, the issue is not even that the material prices are so high. It is the cost of logistics. So the cost of logistics is so high, even higher than the cost of the product itself. What about the cost for labor? You manage to get a good hand. He is charging maybe 150% above what it used to be. And you wonder, how do I not run back to the client to say, I can't continue? If you reject that business, do you have another one? If you reject that contract, are you sure you are going to get the next one? The ones you have, how do you manage it? How do we ensure that we'll manage them and come out alive? The main contractor is faced with a lot of competition. Even companies who do not have as much competence as you have, when they go to bid with you, they really bring down the price. Sometimes we go into bid and we come out and I'm wondering, how did he do it? Even if I give it at base cost, it's not possible. Assuming there is no margin, that I'm going to bid at base cost. Because that's what we do. Before we go into bids, we take off all the margins and we look at the raw cost. And you get to a tender, you are not even the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. Maybe in 10 people, you are number 8. And by the time you are opportune to see what others are submitting, maybe about 5 of them, the number 1 to 5, submitted below what is base cost for you. And you wonder, how are they going to do it? How do you want to deliver the project? So it's really turbulent for we contractors. Very, very turbulent. The projects that you have already, would you continue? How would you continue? Imagine a project you got, maybe, let's not go too far, 2022. I have a project, 2022 January. I can tell you that the rates, even before the end of last year, we are nothing to write home about. The client is not ready to talk about a review of contracts. And do you blame him? No. Does he really have the money? No. So the contractor is also in between running a business and showing empathy to the client. Because without these clients, we can't continue in business. So we also owe them that empathy to put ourselves in their shoes and say, if I were the one, I had a budget of this amount. Now my budget is like times 2, times 2.5, times 3. Would I be able to do the project? So all these are what the main contractor has to deal with at this time. So it's been a very difficult time, and our major problem has been inflation and price escalation. Inflation. Price escalation. Inflation is across board. Price escalation, take a particular item, for example. Let me take reinforcement bars. In 2020, we were still at the beginning of 2020, we were able to buy a ton of reinforcement bars for like 120,000 per ton. Under a year, it went to 325, 350 per ton. And you are still running that same project. Today, a tonnage is about 500,000. Yes, 500,000. That is in that border. How do you manage your resources? How do you manage human resources, material resources, keep a good relationship with your client, and still maintain integrity and run business in the present day Nigeria? The other bigger challenge we also have now is increase in logistics. So the prices of moving items from one point to the other has greatly increased. The cost of energy has affected almost all the prices that the main contractor makes use of. Is it the cost of running the operational vehicles? I can tell you that most construction companies, they have reduced to maybe half or below half of their fleets, their logistic fleets. Is it the cost of moving the staff? For offices where the site workers enjoy mobility allowances, we had to cut down on mobility allowances. And some people I heard have also eradicated it completely. So you live on your salary. Where do you get the motivation? The motivation is also going away. Loyalty is also reducing. Sometimes, as a head, as a team lead, I will assign something to a member of my team and say, call this person, call this person, call this person, do this, do this, do this. The next minute I look back, the person is still standing beside me. What are you waiting for? He said, wants to use my phone. Why will you use my phone? Madam, you don't understand. So it's like that. You close the office, people ought to go home. They are all waiting, they are all hanging. What is the problem? Madam, we are waiting for you. So I'm sure we experience it. Why didn't you come on time? You know we have this meeting. You know, madam, I just need to wait for somebody to follow, to at least to reduce the cost of transport. What do you do in such scenarios? You keep managing them. So the cost of things have escalated so much. Then if you are lucky to have a project that has important, who will take responsibility for what? How do we manage the risk? I believe you'll be given the opportunity to have the write-up. You can read up. But make very, very intelligent decisions, lest you take up liabilities that will sink your boat. Are we going by S-Works? How do we want to operate? So all these things, they need you to be up and doing. If you have been a lazy professional before now, these are not times for laziness. Because every mistake you make at this time will either sink your company or you have the debts to pay for time to come, and you wouldn't want to do that. So we are indeed in turbulent times, and I know that it takes only let me use the word the grace of God, that some of us are still surviving and have not gone underneath. I'm going to quickly, some of the things I wanted to talk about, because of the time, I will just leverage on what others have said, but I will just quickly talk about them. One thing that has worked very well for us at this time is that we have engaged legal partners. Documentation can kill. It can make you. It can exonerate you from every form of trouble if your documentation is well done. These are not the times you are giving the terms of the contract and you just pass it to a junior staff or care less about reading it. I read, but when I don't understand, I call for help. And that is what we do. And I advise us also to do it. When you don't understand the terms of a contract, engage those who understand. Don't think, Shebi, we did law of contract in school. I can tell you we did law of contract in school, but I've seen some interpretation that shook me. I said, really? You mean this is the interpretation of this thing we have been playing with? It is not too much to partner with some people who understand contracts, so an expert in contracts, to read all the terms and the conditions and be sure that they are in your favor as the main contractor. Even if you are not the main contractor, whichever part of the contract you might be, ensure that you understand. These are not times we rush into signing of contracts, because you can sign off the company into doom. And I can tell you that for very smart clients, these are times they want to quickly rush you into signing something. I have a client that say, no, come and collect the money. Just send your account details. Send the company's account details. Let us pay. We want to pay. And I have to look at my team again to ask, what is he really paying for? We have not finalized. Because he's so quick, he's in a hurry to pass the risk. And if you're a lover of money, you will embrace the risk without knowing what you have done to yourself. So it's a time to really look at things properly. Ensure that things are done properly. Do not be in a rush. We know that times are hard. We know that there is no money. But if, in case you are tempted to collect advance payment, have you calculated your risk? These days, most times, I am careful to accept advance payment. Because you need to calculate your risk. I heard the last speaker talk about collecting about 80% of the advance payment. It is good, but it has its own risk. You want to collect 80% advance payment? What do you want to do with it? As I am now, most times, we don't allow money lie fallow. Having your project account full of fund is not in the best interest. It's a high risk. You're taking a high risk. If you don't need your advance payment, don't take it. If you don't know what you want to do with it, if you don't have a good plan of what you want to do with the advance payment, don't accept it. Accepting it is accepting a high risk. Before your very eye, no matter how much that advance payment is. In a space of 1 month, it becomes a scenario like what we have with building collapse. It will just come down. Phew. You'll be wondering what happened. So, as one of our strategies, do not collect advance payment until we have a procurement plan in place of what we want to do with the money. Because for wrong decisions that we've made, we are yet to come out of it. So it is better we are patient. Let's have a good working plan. If I'm going to collect 80% advance payment, I should disburse 80% back to back. And when I say back to back, transferred to the extent the client paid to the suppliers or to the contractors, the manufacturers, so that your risk is reduced. Of course, I know there is no main contractor now that is still going about buying cars because they have paid advance payment. And if they are still deal with. So it's turbulent times. I've told you one of our strategy. Another strategy is that we ensure that we identify all the issues. What are all the issues around this project? We keep issue logs. So I've had the two earlier presenters talk about risk. Yes, beyond risk, one of our strategy is we monitor issues and we manage risk. What do I mean by issues? Issues are the things that are presently happening on the project. Now, the things that are likely to go wrong. It's not in anticipation. What is happening now? We have a log. With that log, we identify, oh, what is the... So that's just a sample of what an issues log looks like. And one thing we have done also is to teach all our team members to identify issues. So you identify issue, you give it an ID. We have an issue monitoring committee that monitors issues. So on a team A, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 issues that have been identified on that project. They are present happenings. They are not in the future. We identify them. We look for how to resolve them. We give it a deadline to close. We identify the issue owner. So you might be in another department, you identified an issue with commercial. I am the issue owner, but you are the identifier. The reason why we ensure that the identifiers are known so that if we need better clarity, we can go back to them to say, please clarify on this. Where did you see it? How did you see it? It's not for winch halting. The issue owners are informed and they work with the issue monitoring committee to ensure that those issues are monitored till they are eradicated. That is one. We do that. Another thing we do is we manage risk. We keep a risk register. Just like we have issues, we have risk. Now the difference is this. Issue is in the now. The risk is in the future. So from all the issues we have going around, happening now, what risk can emanate from them? So I'm going to give some examples of issues and risks that can come out from them, contractually, commercially, and even in the supply chain management. Like in the case of issues, we also have a risk management committee. So these are not imported experts. They are not foreigners to the business. They are team members. So you ensure that this risk has been identified, that if we are not careful with this, this will happen. Ensure that it does not happen. So you do everything within the resource of the organization and within the authority that is given to you as a team member of that committee to ensure that it doesn't happen. So that strategy has helped us so well. And I also recommend it for you. In short, it's an international standard requirement. It's an ISO requirement that you identify your issues and you monitor them. Also, you manage your risk so that unwanted outcome does not happen. So it is important that as quantity surveyors, we are good in risk management. Any reason why it's not moving? Thank you. Okay, so you've had this before now. So when we look at the risk, it's not only at post-contract, even pre-contract. We ensure that we identify what are the issues and what are the risks that are likely to arise on this contract if we take it. When you look at the risk and we weigh it, so when you look at that risk register, you see the impact. There is a formula for calculating the impact, the likelihood and the impact. So what is the likelihood that it will happen? What is the impact it will have on the business if it happens? Depending on the magnitude, the easiest way to go is deal with high risk first. Prioritize it. You can't leave the high risk item and begin to pursue a very minor risk. So you make a decision. Do we want to avoid it? I can tell you that because of greed, so many contractors, they take up every contract that comes their way. Sometimes it's not worth it. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth the stress. If you have evaluated your risk, you take a decision whether to go in or not. So sometimes we avoid it. We take a stand to walk away. It is not being cowardly. It is not being foolish. You can choose to walk away by avoiding it. Sometimes we transfer it. Yes, we have talked about means of transferring. You take a bond, you take a guarantee, you disburse back to back. Those are some of the ways you transfer your risk. It is not all aspect of the work that you must do. Let us learn to stay on our professional lane. We can't be jack of all trades. If you identify the expert in that field, please transfer it to the expert in that field to deal with. Because if you try to do what you do not have the necessary expertise to do, you spend more time, you spend more resources, you make more mistakes. At the end of the day, it may come out poor quality, time overrun, a whole lot of mess, and the energy you would have saved to do better things, you are using it to try to recover. This is not the time to do all manner of contract. If you look into your contract, if there are scopes that are not your area of expertise, please get the right third-party supplier that can do it and transfer that risk. Even logistics. Some of us, we are the supplier. We are the logistics company. We are this, we are that. We do all manner of things. But do you know we can save much energy, save more resources by transferring it to someone who is an expert in that field? They will take less resource to do it because they know it too well. There are some projects that we know this, oh, we are very good at this. We do it without blinking the eye, and we never run at a loss. But there are some, instead of going through that, the whole trouble, why not transfer it from the onset and have your peace of mind? At times, you may choose to reduce the risk. Reduce it. Yes, it must happen, but we can do 1, 2, 3 things to ensure that the impact, the decision top management is not a decision. So, if there is poor cost estimation, if there is incorrect estimate, have the profit, the money meant for 3 materials to buy 1 asset. So when you keep delaying without reasons, when you can't explain why unrealistic contract fit. Now, the plan works because as a senior partner, as a senior member of the team, you are not thinking of one thing. So many things. You are trying to solve a problem. The MD is calling out that there are some mistakes, a working cash flow. In short, one of the things we do every Tuesday, we must analysis. Another thing, when you give our contracts, ensure that percent secured, but you would have reduced. Don't underestimate what the risk that can happen on a project. Don't be too sure. Make sure you get a guarantee from that third-party service provider. I made a big blunder sometime last year. I so used, but I got the money thinking it's on it. They still hide information from each other within. As we are here, you, before it can be done right. They're already signaling that the time is over. Let's learn to negotiate better. Negotiate and negotiate again. But in negotiating, I want to please say, make sure that the aim of your negotiation is win-win. If it is not win-win, at Inokpa, when you Nokpa, they will not deliver. They will only sign the contracts and take the advance. The fight was only postponed for another day. If you are not careful, you will not deliver that project because until you bring out that money you have over Nokpa, the project will not close. So let's always ensure that it's a win-win. Both as consultants, both as contractors, when you take subcontractors, do not put them in so much tight corner that they cannot deliver. Then keep up with the times. Listen to the news. Some of us, we are here, it's only our work we know. We don't listen to news. We don't relax. We don't know the latest technology in town. It's me, my laptop, my phone. It will not work at this time. In our offices. When there is error, you will start from beginning looking for the error to the end, paper by paper. Where we have ERPs that can help you. We have softwares that can help you identify where the error is. Even if it's spreadsheet you are using and you know how to use it well, you can spot out and make corrections immediately than opening, taking off sheet. When you are done, you go and copy the figure. You go and write out the figure into the cell, even with Excel. When you change a figure, you have to go and change it on all the pages. Please let us brace up. Sometimes I feel it's we QSs that are not, we are like times. So because of time, we'll read up this. Those are some of the risks that we can have. So some of the other things we can do with our contracts thoroughly to avoid necessary. Take time to read it, an expert in it, and they will read it and identify even what you cannot see. Negotiate and agree on clear and fair terms. If you do not understand it, do not sign it. It is better you take your time to understand it before you sign. Do not be in a rush. Get an expert review. Very important when it comes to contracts. Get an expert to review. It is during this expert review that I came to find out that, we could even have escalation clauses in our contracts. To say, when the inflation or the price goes above a certain limit, we will not take responsibility for this. You need things like that at this period. But without an expert, some of us, we don't know what escalation clauses. When the interpretation of what you sign really comes out, you find out that you don't even have any shock absorber. So please, let us ensure that we do good verifications, identify the needs of the project, verify well. We can always read up that promptly. Don't always delay addressing of issues. Make sure that as issues, before we step in, please let's ensure that we are always treating issues as soon as they come up. Get an effective solution for your supply chain. Make sure that you embrace advanced technology. We will use an ERP system that works for us. There are a lot of them, you can get one. Build collaborative partnership with your suppliers. Treat them right, because they will go a long way to help you. Ensure that you do your planning accurately. Before this time, on some of our projects, when we had surpluses, we'll have over demand of materials. At the end of a project, you find out almost a truckload of ties are somewhere. Almost 50 drums of paint is somewhere. Let's be careful to check that we are not over procuring. Procure what you need. And do lean construction so that you reduce waste. Optimize logistics. Like I've said, get a specialist in logistics to manage your logistics for you. You can also, the way we do pool riding now, these days, formally, they need this material in Abuja, send it, one truck we go, 2.5 million. They need this under 2 days. These days we are wiser. What do they need here? What on truck? Compact the truck so that you move these 1, 2, 3 items rather than move one, move another one, and you keep incurring costs. Get an expert to head your logistics team. Embrace continuous improvement. Ensure that you do what we call lessons learned session. A lesson learned session. In lessons learned session, what do? We identify what went well. Vendors, let's ensure that we maintain good working relationship. If you vendors, they will be willing to give you some credit that will help you release the next payment. In conclusion, What's your name? Ensure you plan more than you have been planning before. There is no, somebody was saying there is no, you do your budget for just 1 year. Do a holistic budget. When you've done your holistic budget, break it down and replan again. That is what we do. There is the overall budget. There is the, just like you have the stage budget. And ensure that you do this often and often. Communicate effectively. Let's ensure we are communicating effectively with the clients, with the subcontractors, with the vendors, with everybody on the team. Let's communicate effectively. Let's put the right team on the project. There is no money to waste now that you put your brother, cousin, sister, uncle, have job just to be in the team, producing nothing. They are not adding to productivity. They are just there. Gone are those days. Let's ensure we have the right people in the right specs, in the right holes, right specs in the right holes. Have the right team. That will improve productivity. Rather than, what did you even say you read? Okay, computer science. Oh yeah, be here. The fact that he read computer science doesn't mean that he can manage everything that has to do with computer. So please, let's be wise in picking our team. Document accurately. Let's ensure that our documentation, they are spot on. And let us also do it completely and keep them well. I've seen you, sir. Collaborate with other professionals. Ensure that you collaborate. Let's track and monitor our progress and take steps to correct when there are variances, and let us embrace changes. Turbulent times are here to stay. I know that one. So, because it is here to stay, it takes only tough people to be able to what? To outlive a tough period. So please, let's ensure that we do not give in. You do not run down the business. And I'm sure that by the time the turbulent time is over, we'll all have reasons to smile. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. All right. Thank you so much. So very quick paper presentations. Sir? Sir? So please, let's raise our hands if you have questions and comments maybe. Please, once you raise your hand and we stop counting, that will be all, because we really need to manage the time, okay? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Deputy President will wrap it up. Okay? So please, let's make it brief. These are issues we want to raise, and we also know they have risk implication on our closing tonight. So please make it very brief. So number 1.
Chairman Bayelsa State Chapter, QS Gagariga is the name. Is to the first speaker when he was talking about local content or Nigerian content. Being a staff of the Nigerian Content Board in oil and gas, I believe that for us to be able to achieve that, we have to have what I would call legislative backing. The successes we have or we are gaining in the oil and gas sector is because we have legislative backing. The construction sector has too many fragmented sectors. One, formal and informal. In fact, the formal sector of construction is more than the formal sector. So before we begin to emphasize on going local content, we need to be able to integrate both sectors and then have some direction from the government. If we don't have that, there's no way we can build local content in the Nigerian construction sector. Thank you.
Okay. Mine is not so much of a question. There are just few comments. While I appreciate the two resource persons, I want to talk more about the first paper. I don't know. The presenter said they are more of academic work, but I think there are some data there that we may need to query. The fact that Nigeria has the highest construction cost in the world. I don't know if there is a backing to that. From what I know, from ENR Global Survey of 2023, Nigeria is not even close. You know, Nigeria is not in the top 10 in terms of high construction cost. So I know we have Switzerland on top of the chart, Denmark, Hong Kong, and so on. And there are sources, internationalconstructioncost.com too. You can check all that. You know why I'm saying this is that if we have contrary data, let's put it out. Because we have a lot of young people here. So when you make a presentation or submission in this kind of gathering, it must be validated, and it will be something that if somebody from allied profession is here, they cannot see what they are saying. So I think we may need a form of validation on that. Number two, you know, the paper also talk about non-adoption of risk management in most of our projects. And then when you now listen to somebody like QS Faith, Esugo, and also from practical experience of some of us in both consulting and contracting, you see that there's non-adoption, or you have a particular framework that you're expecting people to adopt. Because from time immemorial, we've always carried out risk management on contract. Even the idea of signing a contract, the contract you are signing is a risk allocation tool. It allocates responsibility, risk, the idea of guarantees, bonds, even the payment structure. They are all risk management practices. So I think I needed to clarify on that too. Then also the issue of double VAT. And I think that is very important. I have a contracting background before I moved to consulting. Now, if you have a very solid commercial department, there will be input and output VAT. So, and what that means is that because when you pay VAT on contracts, or on subcontracts, and also materials, you document them. So when you want to do your reconciliation at the end of the year, you know, you could get tax credit, you could get refunds. So, and Quanitity Surveyors in practice knows that this is an area where you can add a lot of value to your organization. So, we need to, when you're talking of double VATing, maybe what I expect that we will itemize is the fact that there's opportunity for Quanitity Surveyors to pay attention to these areas, and then especially for the younger people to begin to develop competencies to identify where they can help organizations in this area. As a matter of fact, this can make us more valuable to contracting organizations than our usual quantification skills. So there are so many things I would have loved that we discussed in that paper, but for the sake of time, I think we should, maybe if you can speak to those areas, if there's any clarification to do, or so I think that will be all for now.
Thank you. I have the microphone. Oh, you also have a number? Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. I think I will also be very brief. He has touched on some issues I had wanted to talk on, particularly the issues of taxation. I think it's an area we really have to look at in the country. Possibly, you know, with that area alone, we can be able to bring down a lot of construction cost. How we have been administering VAT has a problem. Possibly he was referring to it from the government project perspective. You know, sometimes with government, you add the VAT on the BOQ. Now the government will always, because the VAT the consumer pays, they will always pay VAT, when possibly that impute that if the VAT is coming to you, that issues of the input output, if it was a private sector issue, maybe you could have used it as a gain. I mean, because if it is private to private, if it is not government, the expectation is you are paid with the VAT component, while the private entity pays directly the withholding tax component. But it's an area that truly we may have to look at and see how we can develop our competencies. Now, to my issue, I will want QS Faith to possibly look at this insurance issue and tell us. I will have to thank you for sharing a lot of strategies with us, because when we were planning for this paper, I was afraid that you are coming to share your strategies with your competitors. But thank you for telling us what you do, and I'm sure a lot of young people are challenged, and then people have learned that for you to run a successful construction company, there are plenty of things attached to that. So what I will want to specifically ask is, now these days, as part of your logistics issues, do you think our insurance companies, the local insurance companies, are at a position where most of these issues, if you are looking at the Incoterms, now when you have to insure goods in freight, whether they're actually positioned to provide those services? I mean, I'm raising this issue because I know we have also been invited by the insurance sector to share some thoughts with them, and I think this is an area that we need to look at. You have paid for these goods, and then if care is not taken, you will still insure these goods with insurance companies abroad, and you may have to use dollar to insure those companies. But if possibly you have tried those things, I've seen one or two contractors, I wouldn't want to share, taking some insurances these days locally. I don't know whether it's what is obtainable even in your own organization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Adewumi Akipelu. Thank you very much, Madam Faith. I'm so proud of you. You really, went down to the practical aspect of commercial, management. Because I remember that in my former company, the commercial manager, the commercial department, they do a lot, because you see QS, heading that department, issue of logistics. When you get a contract, they will do project analysis. Are we going for this project? What is our workload? Can available resources cope with? She really went down, on that one. But another area which I want to raise is the issue of outsourcing the logistics. I will want you to speak to the fact that, do you have registered logistic company that you are doing, or you have your own plant department that handles that under cost accounting? For those of us that are working in the construction company, do you use cost accounting system to do that? Because it's better for the younger ones to know. Why we are raising all these two is to enrich the paper because of the younger ones. So I don't want to speak on what QS Rotimi and Kabiru have said. Honestly, the first paper, there are a lot of issues. If you have to interrogate that paper, apart from being academic, I think in turbulent time, theoretical framework is not working. We're already in the turbulent time. What are those practical things that we need to do? That is what this workshop is trying to address. But Rotimi and Kabiru, they've really raised that one. So I wouldn't want us to do it. I don't want to talk on that one. So Madam Faith, do you use cost accounting, or how do you handle your logistics and things like that? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have the Deputy President now who will speak. Then the President will also say a word.
Mr. President, I would like to commend the two paper presenters. The first person who presented the paper, you must excuse him, because I'm sure he was here to represent Dr. QL somebody. Sorry, what was his name again? So all the lacunas we may have discovered, we can excuse him.
Sir,
Wait a minute. Please,
Members at the back, particularly those at the lobby, you are actually interfering with our program and we can hear the noise. Please come into the building or move downstairs, please. Thank you.
And I think to me, he did a fantastic job to the extent that he's here and represented Dr. Pierce. Well, the major person who was supposed to present the paper, I'm sure SPDL, you know, he did a good job. We can excuse him for all the gaps, and those gaps are also debatable. I'm sure those gaps are debatable, but we don't have the luxury of time to debate the gaps. But however, where's Faith Ezugo, FNIQS? Indeed, I want to also join MNI to commend you for the fantastic job you did. But, you know, most of us who are seated here are very conversant with the fluctuation clause. In all the conditions of contracts, we are very conversant with the fluctuation clause. And you talked about escalation clause. The escalation clause you introduced here, or you spoke about, are they clauses that are agreed upon by the two parties that are involved in the project, or we can actually find escalation clause as clauses in conditions of contract? I think you need to explain that to the audience. Thank you.
Anyway, sorry. It was interesting when the first presenter was talking about insurance, and I think Faith also mentioned the same. What I just wanted to say is that, and I'm happy that the DP is here. We went to see the Executive Commissioner for Nigerian Insurance Commission. And the whole idea of the visit was for us to create a collaboration between the QS and the insurance sector. We want to be able to work together. For instance, I'm aware that under the Insurance Act 2003, any building that is above one floor that is tenanted is seen as a public building, which should be insured. There are penalties for non-compliance with that clause. So, and how the premium is arrived at is also stipulated in that act. So, and the basis, of course, is the restatement cost. So what's the restatement cost? Who determines that? It's the QS. But we'll find out that what has been happening is that the estate surveyors have been the one doing it. So that was the whole idea of going to them. Of course, there is also this whole idea of also collaborating with other people. But because the commission is a regulatory, in fact, we were talking with others before. NICOM was the only one that was the first that responded for us to visit. And at that visit, they were so happy for us to come because they confessed that they are not conversant with construction industry. And that is why they have not been involved in taking insurance for uncovering construction projects. Because look, in most cases, when you are doing any project, most clients will tell you go and bring a bond from the bank or bring bank guarantee. Hitherto, way back in the 70s, it was insurance bond. But because the insurance companies, they failed in their claims, people now went to the bank. And then also when the banks were doing their expansion in the 90s, it was easier for them to get money from one another. So they just said, okay, go and bring bank guarantee, and then that became something that was supposed to be an aberration, now became the norm. So yes, already we had agreed there is a committee, a joint committee between NICOM and NIQS, with our deputy president as the one heading from NIQS, and they had some deputy directors also from NICOM. We are supposed to be planning like a construction insurance collaboration discourse sometime, either this year or it could be next year when the DP takes over. So yes, there are some work in that area. There's one particular thing somebody mentioned. I think it is the chairman from Bielsa about local content. Incidentally, the immediate past president, that's PMB, actually had this executive order on local content. But maybe because it's not a piece of legislation, that is why it's not being followed. Maybe we might have to lead. As I'm saying this because, the DP is here. Maybe we might have to lead that also to get the industry to follow through with the president, to get that, rather than just being an executive order, being turned into a legislation so that we can see that through. We already have a lot of our members who are eager to help in the National Assembly. Maybe, yes, we can push that through. And then, finally, the issue of that everybody complained about, which I don't want to blame the young man for, about Nigeria being the one with the highest cost. That is what led to ICMS. And I'm happy that ICMS is going to be one of the things that we'll be talking about during our BGM, International Construction Measurement Standard. And it is high time we take the lead. Well, we are taking the lead because the engineers don't want to be part of it for one reason. The coalition that birthed that ICMS has NIQS as one of the trustees of that coalition, while the NSC or the engineers are not there. And because they claim that they are the cost engineers or the people that manage cost of construction, particularly civil engineering projects, they feel ashamed that why you be talking about ICMS and they are not there. And that's probably why they are not. But I think we still need to take the lead and go ahead. So it is important that all of us go and read about ICMS. You see, when we have workshops like this, it's not just for us to come and talk. Yes, there's a networking opportunity. We all chat, we all see each other and meet. But what are the takeaways? The takeaways are some of the things we have learned. QS Faith had been so wonderful. She had given so many tips as to how she's been managing. And I was surprised. I met engineer, I can't pronounce his name very well, Okaisavo. Yeah. I met him about 10 days ago with the deputy chairman of, with the chairman of Lagos chapter. We met at the social function. And I can imagine why the man is doing so well. I think he started from Rivers and he's almost taking over Lagos, in terms of what have you. So obviously he's got a good setup. But there are so many lessons from the tips given by US Faith here, which all of us, both in contracting and consulting, and that's the whole idea of all these workshops. What are the takeaways? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, you want to interact a bit?
Thank you, Mr. President, for your clarification and your support on the issues. Then, one of the questions I want to make clarification on is the issue of insurance. We talked about, somebody raised an issue of if there's no insurance practice currently. When I mention insurance, yes, I made mention that there's insurance in the construction industry. That's the traditional insurance system is no longer feasible for the current economic crisis we are facing. But most of these traditional insurance systems do not cover for fluctuations. They don't cover. So we can, insurance companies can step on. When we have crises like this, in a turbulent time like this, opportunities arise. So insurance companies can step up into these opportunities and approach companies, construction companies, that they can actually burden the shoulder of fluctuation if the fluctuation arise, and you pay a premium on it. You can fix the contract with the insurance company. These are opportunities that we can dwell on. Currently, we have insurance on building collapse. We have, in construction industry, we have car, construction or insurance. So, and it's in practice, but we can still do more. We can get it more practical with the current scenario, and that's my area of emphasis. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It was a real privilege to do the presentation. So the first question, insurance. Yes. Do we have insurance on freight for materials that are imported? And where can we probably get it? Okay, I'll take a case study of my organization. Okay, so for insurance of items that are imported, first of all, you need to know that whatsoever cost you incur on any project is still passed over to the client. Where the problem is when you fail to have computed it in your estimate. So it becomes a problem. Who pays? But whichever way, it is the client that has to pay. In getting insurance, there are different types of insurance. We have cargo insurance, we have marine insurance, we have transit insurance, so many types of insurance for goods. And they all come with a premium, depending on how heavy your logistics are when it comes to importation. So that will be the basis on which you decide what to do. Like I said, the major problem is that some of us, while we estimate, we do not take them into cognizance. We only, like what I see some QS do, they just go to the internet. They look for the price of a material. They just use it. They mark it up or put a margin. They've forgotten that there is cost to bring it in. Who is going to bear the cost of bringing it in? Because it is $1,000 on the net, you just used it directly. Have you checked the source of that material? Is it locally available? Does using just the price you got on the internet sort it? Who is going to bring it in? And for some of these goods, if you have to bring them in, some you are not even allowed to bring directly into Nigeria. There are some of our products you are not allowed to bring in directly to Nigeria. You need to go through someone maybe in the UK has to buy, in the US has to buy on your behalf before they now bring it in. So because we are not diligent when we are putting together our estimates, it becomes a problem of who pays. But it is the responsibility of the client to bear the cost. So that's why I talked about planning and planning again. You need to look beyond just getting prices and fixing the price. Like some goods are not as expensive as the logistics to bring them in. For some items, the logistics are like 2 times, 3 times the cost of the material itself. Imagine that you made such mistake. How do you recover from it? So it is important that when, especially those of us that are more, Google is my friend, cost estimators. You just pick your price from the internet. You forgot that that item you picked is only sourced from Japan. It's only sourced from Germany. You use the cost directly without checking, okay, what is the cost of bringing it in? Can it fly? Must it be through shipment, through the sea? So what type of freight can you do? All these things we do not take cognizance to look into them. It is important that we look into them so that by the time you have built in the cost and you have good defense why your price is what it is, your rate is what it is, by the time you get an approval to do the job, it's not that you have overpriced. There is a reason why the price of an item, maybe that is 1 naira, you have priced it to be 5 naira. Sometimes 3 naira goes into the logistics, in all sincerity. And you have to take that into cognizance with the logistics. Then, why the goods are being moved, who pays for the insurance? It's also the client. So you would have ensure that the premium on those that you pay on those insurances have been built into your cost. That is one. Then I've talked about getting experts. Don't be a jack of all trade. Don't take the risk. Transfer it. Get an insurance company that has some of these insurances that I've mentioned. There's shipping insurance, there's cargo insurance, there's marine insurance, there's transit insurance. Let's ask questions. There are specialists in them. There are insurance companies that can take such risk. And let's engage them when we are doing this to protect ourselves, protect the client, protect the commodities, and ensure that we do not run at a loss. Thank you. Outsourcing. Outsourcing of logistics. How do we do outsourcing of logistics? Yes, internally we have a plant and equipment team. But depending on what volume, we can do it internally and we can also outsource. When you are outsourcing, ensure that you have pre-qualified the supplier, as in that service provider, that is the supplier. Ensure that they are properly pre-qualified and they have the necessary insurance. Do not because he has a trailer, he has a this ton, this, he has a this, you just give them your goods. Anything can go wrong. Ensure that you pre-qualify them. That's what we do. We ensure that they are pre-qualified and they are able to take responsibility if anything goes wrong. So do not just engage vendors without proper pre-qualification. Then also we have our internal system, depending on how less busy they are and also the volume of what we are moving. You engage the internal logistics team. But that department is also a revenue generating department, servicing projects across the organization. So when they render service to you, you pay for the service. That is the way to keep that department running. That is the way they service their trucks. Yes, we have the advantage of not paying as much as you would have paid to a third-party service provider. But you still pay something. The little stipends that we pay, yes, not at the margin that would have paid to an outsider, is used to keep that department running. So if they render a service to your project, you as the commercial team lead or the project manager knows that part of your budget has to go to that department. So we always do that. So those are the two ways we deal with the issues of logistics. Okay. Fluctuation clauses and escalation clauses. Yes. In our contracts, we have fluctuation clauses. I have talked about getting an expert to review. You see, the problem I have seen over time is that most of us, the contract conditions we use on one project, we just transfer to the next project. We don't read it. You don't review it. Because it was good for A, doesn't mean it will work well in B. And that is why you need these legal experts to look into this. Sometimes these clauses are so flat that there is nobody to take responsibility when it comes to the real interpretation of them. So get an expert to interpret it and be sure the terms you are okay with them. Escalation clauses, they are a form of fluctuation clause, yes, but the way I've seen them work is that it is stated in clear terms, especially in turbulent times like this, that if the fluctuation or the price of this item is escalated beyond this threshold, the contractor will not be responsible for dash, 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 dash. So it is clear. Once, and you, before you sign that, you are sure that you will do everything possible to fulfill your responsibility on that contract so long you are on this threshold. But if things go crazy, as it does in turbulent times, you will not be responsible. So the client has to count his cost again and be sure that he wants to continue. So the important thing is make sure you understand the agreements you are going into and be sure that it is favorable. Because for things that you do not confirm, it could lead to unexpected outputs. And I'm sure that we all want to finish the project well. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, thank you, QS Faith. Thank you to also QS Egbebo Omopol, and also to every one of you. Yes, just as a side, we all know that depending on the type of project you are running, it is not necessarily domiciled in the hands of the contractor to draw up contract conditions. It's usually probably that of the consultant and the client, but perhaps it's a turnkey or a design build, depending on the kind of project. Sometimes that responsibility falls in the hands of that contractor, but of course, the client will still need to have a third party to review on behalf of the client. Okay, but I do hope every one of us have learned a thing or two. I've also wanted to talk about in risk management itself, it's not necessarily always negative. Sometimes risk could be positive, and you can exploit it, you can enhance it. Okay, for instance, if our dear president now, becomes a, you understand? I know my own done better with that. So I might step down my political, you know, understand, and be a PA to him, because I will now make more money that way. God help all of us. Mr. President, you are not here, don't worry. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap up very quickly, and we have a big presentation of gift. We're really going to apologize to our last speaker for today. We're going to take his paper first thing tomorrow morning. That is QS Jami here, Numbere, the distinguished gentleman here, wonderfully dressed for us. And tomorrow we're going to take his paper first thing at 9 a.m. Okay, tomorrow morning. We're going to start exactly at 9. So, all right, so let's quickly start with the presentation. I'll please like to call on QS Igbebo Omopol, who is representing QS Dr. Andrew Ebekozen, to please come forward as I invite the Vice President. So the Vice President should please come and do this presentation for our resource person. Please, a round of applause, Vice President QS Delima Fimido, as it comes for this presentation. Please go to there. Where is it? Yes. Deputy President.
Yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate the presentation. It's really very good. So, Nigerian Institute of Quanitity Surveyors present this to QS Dr. Andrew Ebekozen. Yes, ably represented by
QS Omopol.
Omobon. Thank you very much on the 2-day workshop. Thank you very much. Let us present this to him.
A round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Please thank a round of applause for Vice President for helping us with that. Okay. We're going to call on... I'm already practicing how I'm going to be... Somebody whispered to me earlier that is the incoming. You know, de facto. The successor to the success. De facto...
There is no point trying to deny somebody information that is at your beck and call to give out. If you have it, share it. I guess I'm speaking your mind. That the competition is not here. The competition is outside. That was exactly what she said. If you didn't get anything from the paper she presented, I'm sure you heard that. So Don't deny your colleague information that you think if you let out, he is going to benefit him. Is also, what she's trying to say is that it is also for your own benefit, because it makes the institute stronger, because you have empowered a colleague who should have an information that will enhance the services of quantity surveying in Nigeria. So on this note, on behalf of the president of the institute, I want to thank you for the wonderful paper you presented, and I'm sure that we are all better for it, and will continue to build and enhance and upscale our capacity from the point that you've bequeathed the knowledge to us. Thank you, and you will dish out this knowledge again. Thank you.
Thank you. NIQS Atokbe. He said, hold on one more. I would like to call on our first resource person for today, Mr. Charles Uhele, to please also come forward for this presentation by the Deputy President of NIQS. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Charles.
You know, you said you have become a quantity surveyor by association.
Absolutely.
It's only, no, I agree. In fact, before you, there is a professor. You need to go and consult with him, because that one is unapologetic quantity surveyor. So, the way I'm seeing you, you're already trending in that path. So I want to congratulate you for being like us. You are no longer aspiring to be like us. You're already like us, because you share our aspirations, and you know that we're also endangered because of the people who see us as obvious threat, not because of anything, but because of the so much knowledge that we carry, and his knowledge presented, and all the areas you opened our eyes to. And I want to say that the president said I should tell you that when next that you are invited, please come as one of us. Thank you, and congratulations for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. A round of applause. Can we please have all the resource persons please come for a group photograph? Mr. President, if you could please also join. Resource persons, please come forward here for a group photograph. Thank you. Please join. And yes, the presidency, please. Vice President also join. Okay. Okay, yes. Also, resource persons here to present, please join. Please, you can go to the other. See. All right. Well, gender. Are we only one? The dancing queen is the only one here. Waxing to balance the equation. Please, if you can join waxing chairperson, QS Priscilla. Fine. Let us stay. Thank you. NIQS at top air. May not respond. NIQS at top air. Yes, so good. So thank you. This is where I remember that I'm a part of NEC. Hold on. You know, no pass me. Now they always forget say I've been NEC member. Hold up. Me that I'm at top end since morning. I should squat. Where? Thank you.
Everybody pull out. My friend, next video, yeah. How is it?
Please clap if you want to clap. It has been a macro event, and we are closing to pass. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we have go there, and the result that we have done to enhance it, we've packed the meal in takeaway packs. So all of us are going to get. Mr. President, National Executive Council members and fellows, you can please remain where you are. They are going to bring our packs to us here. The rest of the members, you can please line up to my right with your meal ticket. Also, please, the bus, the coastal bus will be leaving